and welcome to the Painted podcast. My name is Marie St. Sandy. I am your host, your makeup artist, the curator, everything. And today I'm joined by our very special guest, Neptune.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. So I like to let the guests kind of introduce themselves a little bit. So if you just tell me your name, your pronouns, where you're from and or based, and what it is that you do.
So my name's Neptune, I'm 20 and I'm a drag artist from Glasgow. I've been doing drag for about 7 years and my pronouns are he, him out of drag and in drag, I don't really care.
Nice. So you've been doing drag for 7 years, you said.
Yeah.
When we were doing the makeup for this, you told me you started when you were just 13. So what was it that sparked that interest at that time?
I think at the time I was really into painting and like other types of art, and I stumbled across Drag Race, funnily enough. And I just started recreating makeup, and then I discovered the local scene, started recreating more makeup from like getting inspired by other artists from Glasgow, Dundee, and then it went from there.
Nice. So considering you started so young then, there would have been a period in your life where you were doing a lot of what we call bedroom drag.
Yeah.
Do you feel like having that time is something that perhaps it prepared you for going out to perform?
Definitely. I mean, I wasn't fully integrated into the scene, obviously, I was underage, but I think just having a lot of time to practice, get to know what works for you in terms of like makeup, what kind of drag you want to do, and then being able to step out into the scene. And a lot of it was online to social media, so I kind of was introduced to the scene before I fully started performing and such.
Yeah, because this is the thing is like one of the things that I notice about you the most is your makeup skills. And I scrolled as far back as I could on your Instagram, and from what I've seen, the makeup's always been there. Like you've never been afraid of the makeup brush.
I mean, it's always been there. It's always been there. Yeah, I mean, when I started, I was definitely a lot has changed in terms of my drag face and my drag makeup. But yeah, it was when I started, it was about the makeup. I didn't really have any interest in performing when I started. It was more just I wanted to try the makeup.
So when you were posting your looks online, was that mostly Instagram or were you on Tumblr?
I never really had a Tumblr face, shockingly. It was always on Instagram. Yeah, when I started, it was not on Instagram. I was way too young for that. And I had an art Instagram, and I think I started there. I started posting some drag stuff. And then eventually I just decided to make a separate account for it.
It seems like a very kind of organic process, the kind of like the way that you got into it, and just having all that time, because I was doing makeup in my room for about 6 months before I went out and performed. Obviously I was 20 when I started, so that was accessible. Did you ever feel any frustration at all at not being able to go out and perform?
Yeah, that was a big thing. I mean, there were a couple of shows that I could go to take part in, but it was very limited options, and it was like one show a month or something. So I remember I would be really like just desperate to be able to go to shows, and I'd come home from school, and then as soon as I got back, I would like get changed, start doing my makeup. I would spend like the whole night doing drag makeup. Yeah.
That's interesting. I mean, the concept of like starting drag while in school is such like an alien thing to me. And I
Yeah.
think it's because I grew up in the Highlands, in a very small place where people were very, very narrow-minded.
Yeah, of
Um,
course.
So, and actually, it was a completely different time. Well, it was a totally different time. I think it's weird because when you were starting, so what year was that? It was around.
What year would that be? Maybe 2017? Yeah,
2017.
around then.
Yeah, so that's about a year after I just started. Um, and that's when like makeup, the actual, I suppose the way that it was applied, it was all huge. It was like the big
Yeah.
wings and like the nostril contours. I used to do those. Uh, all these like little trends that have sort of fallen off completely. Um, so the makeup journey, I guess, it's evolved a lot. So talk us through the present day Neptune, that the kind of inspiration that went into that look. Because what I've noticed is that it's very sculptural.
Yeah, I think when I started, um, obviously I was watching Drag Race, and I think a lot of the makeup just blended together for me. Not in a bad way, but I was like, I just want to do the big eyeliner, big lips, big everything. And it started like that. And I think at first I kind of went overboard. It was a bit much, but just over the years I've gradually like refined it and got it down to shapes that work specifically for my face, because obviously everyone's face is different. What works for me will not work for everyone. So it took a lot of time to find that, and then gradually I've just kind of worked it down to my drag face now. It's still like the roots are still there. I don't have the nostrils anymore, thank God. Um, but yeah, it's very similar to what I started with. I've just kind of worked with it and
Yeah.
changed little bits.
No, and that's 100% true. It's like in my case as well. It's like when, well, my makeup's gone a complete 180 from what it was when I first started. First start, the squiggle wasn't there, but it is true what you say. Like you start off with really big shapes that obscure a lot of the features, and the more you do it, the more it refines. I think as well, this is really what I found really interesting about our shoot today is that I think you are probably the only person I've done for this series that has experience of painting other people or putting other people in makeup.
Yeah.
Um, so I think as well, you would have been able to relate to a lot of the struggles because it is true, everybody's face is completely different.
Yeah.
Um, so in terms of makeup, and I'm talking from personal experience here, but I found from doing makeup on other people, I learned how advantageous my face was. Did you ever have like a similar kind of thing with that?
Yeah, I do get that. I mean, I think my makeup started off just very big, kind of, I didn't know what I was doing, and then just gradually I was able to like refine and tailor it and just get it to a place where I was happy with it, and everything kind of fits in with my facial features in a way.
Yeah, because I think as like when you are doing makeup on yourself and on other people, you pick up so many different aspects of people's faces. For one, when I was doing, there was a couple people in the first year of Painted by Marie that had really kind of chiseled like kind of faces, and they had like really strong brow bones and stuff, and I was like, God, I was like, this is really challenging to work on for me right now. And then I realized that how versatile my face could be, because I felt like a lot of my features, I've got like okay cheekbones, but I've not got like a huge brow bone. And I was like, okay. And in a way, the makeup became like almost like a sort of little therapy booster where
Yeah.
you're like, no, I can do this with my face, I can do that with my face. And it sort of boosted the self esteem a little bit.
Yeah, I have like a similar experience. I mean, I have quite a round face, not very defined, so I have like a lot of space to just work with it and try different shapes and everything. My contour at the minute is very like chiseled, and I'm able to just create a whole new different shape.
Mm. And that is something that I always notice about your makeup, and I think it's one of your signatures. But it's not just the actual chisel shapes, it's also the color palette that you use. So your like we were talking about this earlier, your highlights are very white and then you've got nice kind of dark contours. So you play around a lot with contrast.
Yeah.
Um, so where did that kind of thing come from?
I'm not sure. I think maybe it also stems from very early on when everything was just so bold about my makeup. And then, I mean, I don't have very strong facial features anyway, so I think that also played into it. I just wanted to have like a really strong face shape in drag, and contour was a way for me to do that. So I like having really white highlights, very dark contours, and then just a mid-tone to blend it all together.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see that you still do that, especially in because I feel like drag makeup these days, it's beginning to get smaller and smaller and smaller,
Yeah, I
and
have noticed that
people
too.
are wearing so much less makeup than they used to. Um, and it's interesting and it's nice to see people who still do it bold. But the thing as well is, and I think this is perhaps where your makeup training comes in, it's that the makeup never looks heavy on you, the makeup that you do.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm shocked that it doesn't because I use so much, a lot more than I should. But I think it's just learning how to properly blend everything, set in it in a way where it doesn't look too heavy.
Mm.
Um, and a lot of the stuff I use is powder as well. A lot of people gravitate towards creams for that reason, to make it look less heavy. But personally, I think powders can also do the same in a way.
Yeah, I actually find powders to be a lot more buildable.
Yeah,
The issue with powder, I think, is that you you kind of have to know what you're doing because it's not going to be as easy to remove if you make a mistake.
yeah, that is another thing. I mean, with creams, I feel like it's very easy to go overboard. You put a little bit on, suddenly it's
Well, yeah, and a lot of products now are formulated to be a lot higher in pigment.
yeah,
Like the stuff that you get, and you will have noticed this. Like, did you have to order a lot of your drag stuff online, like your makeup things?
yeah,
And now you can go into Be Perfect, you can go into Superdrug, you can go into Boots, and there are things there that they're selling, and you're like, where was this like seven
yeah.
years ago?
No, I
um,
remember it so vividly because when I started, I was obviously about 13. I didn't have my own bank card or anything, so I'd be using my parents' Amazon account, just ordering any makeup that I could, and it was the most random selection of products. And now there's so much more choice.
Yeah, I think with the kind of the popularization of drag as well, I think back then drag was it was on like an upward trajectory back then. Because I think we must have been on what like season 9 of Drag Race or something like that.
Yeah,
And it was starting to get it was getting fairly popular, but it wasn't at the level that it's at now. But what I have found is the more popular drag has gotten, the more influence it's had on the wider makeup industry, and um, the actual products that are being used. It's so strange, um, but it really helps you out now as an artist.
yeah, especially when I was in college, last year especially, a lot of the trends that were going on were they had roots in drag. Like it was all stuff that I mean, a lot of them were directly taken from drag. I mean, the Krylon setting sprays,
Mm.
for theatre and for drag. Um, yeah,
Yeah, well, a lot of like I have noticed like even stuff like the kind of the pink under eye trend, which I was talking to you about earlier. Um, I feel like that's like a very draggy type thing. It's the way
yeah,
that makeup has sort of emboldened itself in a way and just sort of gone a little bit more experimental. Even for everyday wear, like even graphic liner as well. Like that's absolutely huge now. And it has been for ever like few, maybe 3, 4 years now.
yeah. I think now people are more willing to like experiment with different things when it comes to makeup.
100%. So obviously makeup is a big strong point of yours, but another is hair.
Yeah,
So you style all your own wigs?
I do. Yeah,
God, I'm so envious because I absolutely hate working with hair. Like I'll buy a wig and I'll tease the root a little bit so it's got a tiny bit of bounce to it. and that's me. I'm off. I'm done. Um, so, when did you start styling wigs?
Honestly, not that long ago. I was the same as you. I hated styling wigs. I would try so hard and I was really bad at it, and I would be on the verge of tears every time trying to tease a wig. Um, and then I just kept trying different styles and none of them really stuck. I wasn't good at it at all. And then just one day someone asked me if I could style a wig for them, and I tried it and it went okay, and then it just kind of went from there. It wasn't something that I'd done on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
It just kind of happened. And I guess with more practice as well, it became a little bit easier. And studying it at college as well, I learned a lot more about wigs. Not specifically for drag, but just in general, how to keep them, how to pin them onto a block, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I think with wig styling, there's a lot of elements to it that we don't realize. And it's the same with makeup as well. Like I always talk about, oh, sorry, we're in the city centre and there's a lot of cars going around. I think this has happened in nearly every podcast. Um, with makeup, there's a lot of muscle memory involved. And I imagine the same principles with hair. But also with hair, I think there's a lot stricter a setup as well for what you're doing, you know.
Yeah.
So in terms of styling wigs, what are the particular styles that you are drawn to? Because I know some people, they do very sculptural wigs, you know, with all the kind of almost like ballroom dancing type hair with all the
Yeah.
rhinestones, and you get some people that do the big, although I think this style is out of fashion now, but they like tease it so it's almost like the big wavy kind of
Marcel
ones.
waves.
Yeah. What is it that you are drawn to?
I think a lot of the time I gravitate towards really slicked back styles. I like having a really slick base. And then maybe a spiky bun or like a tease ponytail. Also mullets as well, like the complete opposite of the slicked back wigs. But yeah, mullets as well, and more like goth and punk inspired styles. I've done a few mohawks, they were quite fun.
Oh, oh, that's interesting. Because a lot of like drag wigs, they tend to sort of steer away from, I suppose, contemporary fashion and tend to exaggerate quite a lot. But I've noticed a huge trend now with wigs is that they do resemble the kind of the more editorial type stuff and I suppose quote unquote everyday wear. So as well, like obviously with like the spiky buns and stuff like that, that's like a really like 90s 2000s
Yeah.
type thing. Are you like drawn to like any particular decades?
I do quite, yeah, I would say so. Maybe the 80s and 90s, I think. A lot of the styles that I do are inspired by those decades. And I think just in general, the 2000s has had a huge resurgence.
It has.
And just everyone is interested suddenly in 2000s fashion, 2000s hair. So there's a lot of the commissions that I get asked for are 2000s inspired. So that's part of it too.
It's interesting the kind of the cyclical nature of it because with the 2000s, I remember it the first time around. I was there for all of it, and I remember seeing like, you know, the kind of the hair streaks and the low-rise jeans. You know, I remember Christina Aguilera in Dirty and stuff, and I've seen that aesthetic coming up a lot in people's drag now.
Yeah.
It's so wild. And this is the thing, I'm now like praying that the 2010s don't come back, but like they probably will, and they'll come back in a way that I'll be like, oh, this is so cool.
Yeah.
But I'm like, what is the hair of the 2010s? Like, because when I was a teenager then, and we all had like big, massive, like hairsprayed the fuck out hair. Like, and the quiffs and stuff like that. Like, it was so bad. It was so bad. So, obviously, so you've got hair, we've got makeup. So, what is a Neptune performance kind of like then?
So I haven't performed in quite a while, but a lot of my performances are mixes. Um, and for those, I'll just kind of take inspiration from usually something that's happened recently. So like songs I've been listening to recently, stuff I've been watching, um, or just like general pop culture things that spark some inspiration. And I'll just kind of like compile like audio clips, music, anything that can go into this mix. Um,
Yeah. No, and I'm the same as well. Like, obviously, I'm like a big mix person as
yeah,
well. If I'm not doing visuals, it's a mix. And the mix is slowly becoming a bit of a lost art form, I feel. So it's obviously nice to sort of see that come up again. Um, so obviously you talk a lot about like obviously pop culture and music and stuff. How easy do you find it to develop ideas from that?
I think once I have an idea, it's like quite easy to build around that. It's just finding initial subjects for mixes that can be quite tricky. But I think once you've got an idea, I mean, I listen to so much music, so I've always got like a song in the back of my head when I think of something. I'm like, oh, that would work really well. Um, yeah, a lot of my performances too are just straight tracks, like stuff I've been listening to recently.
Mm. Yeah, I know, and I find that quite a lot as well. Like my inspiration will come, it will start with something really obscure. So like there'll be perhaps a line from a TV show or a movie or something from the internet, and I'm like, oh, I really want to use that. And then I'll think of one way of using it, and then all of a sudden the idea just like kind of
Yeah,
builds around that. But it's not something I can do all the time. It's like I find that I need to take breaks. Um, and I imagine you're probably the same as well. It's like you need to sort of take space in between, let things grow and develop.
yeah, I think a lot of it happens organically. I think trying to force myself to think of ideas kind of, I mean, it leads to burnout,
Mm-hmm.
definitely. But when things happen organically, it's a lot easier to just find stuff that works together.
Mm. So I also noticed as well, like obviously from a lot of your drag as well, like the outfits are always really perfected as well.
Thank you.
Do you ever make any of your own outfits?
Um, by myself, I have not. I would love to be able to sew. I have tried many times. I'm just not. It's not for me.
Mm.
But my gran actually helps me make a lot of my outfits.
Ah.
She was a seamstress and a dressmaker. She made wedding dresses. So sometimes I'll come to her with an idea or a sketch, and she'll help me like pick out material. She's got so much already. She'll just like open a drawer, be like, "This will work,"
Mm.
um, and then help me to make it. She made, she's made like some gowns for me. I have this wedding dress outfit that's so gorgeous, um, which was a top that I found in a second-hand shop, and then we got like trims and added stuff onto it, and it ended up being a full costume.
Oh, that's nice. That is nice as well to have the support from a family member as well. But, like my family are very supportive of like my drag career and they follow along with it and they really like it. The issue is that none of them are creatively inclined, so they can't help. It's like they'll maybe buy me things or I'll say like, oh, can I have this P. Louise base for Christmas or something, and they'll get me that. But it is nice as well to, I suppose, like, do you find it a rewarding process to share that with your grandmother?
Yeah, I think so. It's nice to. I mean, she has tried many times to teach me how to sew, and it just never sticks. So, um, having her there to help, and obviously she like adds little bits onto it, her own ideas.
Mm. Yeah, I know I cannot seem to pick up sewing at all. I find it really, really fiddly, and there's a lot of maths involved in it, which I'm not good at. I can't even thread the machine. Like someone showed me how to thread a machine, and they were like, "Look, it's just easy," and I was like, "That's not easy." I was like, "I've tried this about 5 times already, and it doesn't work." Like it's, and then you've got all the different settings on the machine. Like I'm envious of anybody who can sew. I do quite like an upcycling moment though. That's quite fun.
Yeah, a lot of the stuff that I have is like upcycled or it's stuff that I found secondhand. I do like that aspect of it.
Yeah, I think it's fun. As well, just to have like unique kind of items because a lot of drag now is moving towards like I don't know what's happened, but people seem to have a lot more money now, or they just invest more into their drag. So everybody's got like the custom outfits and things like that. Um, my way of doing custom outfits is to get t-shirts printed with silly phrases on them, and I'm like, it's custom, it's custom. um, do you spend like a lot of money on drag, or do you feel like you're fairly resourceful with it?
I don't know. I do feel that I'm resourceful with it. I've never spent too much on drag. I've never had like a custom costume or anything. I've always styled my own wigs. I think a lot of the stuff I just get. I like looking in secondhand shops or even online, places like Vinted. So good for drag, and even if you don't have a huge budget, you can find some like really unique costumes. A lot
Mm.
of my best costumes are just things I've found secondhand, upcycled it, added little bits. Um, because yeah, I do feel like if you don't have a huge budget, drag nowadays can be really difficult, especially for new people. Because you join, you see everyone with these custom outfits, um, and a lot of people gravitate towards fast fashion as well.
Yeah, yeah, which obviously isn't the best kind of way of doing it either. I'm quite guilty of like fast fashion at times, um, because it's the only way as well. Like I can sort of relatively achieve a vibe, um, but just because obviously I don't have the skills. But I suppose as well, your looks, they feel very, very informed. So do you have like a strict idea in your head of what the look is going to be, or do you find that there are lots of surprises along the way?
Yeah, I do feel like it kind of grows along the way. I'll have like a little idea, I'll build off of that, or maybe I'll see a wig on someone else and I'll be like, oh, I kind of like that vibe, so I'll recreate something similar, create a look around it, and then just like mixing and matching a lot of stuff that I already have in my drag wardrobe. I'm very guilty of like coming up with an idea, I start it, I don't finish it. I've got so many unfinished wigs, costumes, and everything.
Mm. No, I think it's difficult sometimes to follow through with ideas, like because obviously you get loads and loads of ideas, you get random bursts of inspiration, and then I don't know, things happen, life gets in the way, and
Yeah.
then or you lose interest in it. That happens to me quite a lot. It's like, and you just end up with loads of, and I often find as well, if I leave an idea undeveloped, it's not getting developed. It's like I can't even go back to it. Do you find you can go back to things?
I don't. I wish I could, but I've got so many. Like, I'll start a mix, I'll forget about it. I'll start a costume, I'll forget about it. And then I'll just keep it there because I'll be like, one day I'll go back to that. And it just never. Because there's always new stuff as well, and you forget about that you'll have better ideas in the future.
Yeah, and that's like a really, like I always find that's like a very comforting thing to remember is that you will always have better ideas in the future. It's even when somebody does like, you know, another artist happens to do a concept for a performance that you were thinking of doing, you have that moment of, oh shit. But then you're like, well, not this time, it's fine. Or quite often I just develop it anyway because I'm like, oh, that's going to be different. It's going to be different to
Yeah.
what I'm going to do. Um, so do you feel as well, like with the drag that you do, that you have, what is the word I'm looking for? A unique sense of identity?
I mean, I would say not really. I can't.
Really?
I feel like a lot of people have like a strict idea of like you, for example, you have built up this whole universe. You see your drag face, it's like very iconic. Like you see the squiggle, it's obviously you. Um, but I feel like my drag is just like a mix and match of like so many ideas. Like a lot of it's very. I went through a phase of being really inspired by like 70s, 80s punk, goth music, then by like bubblegum pop, everything was pink. So I mean, it really fluctuates. It's very different.
Yeah, I think though like that in itself is like a big uniqueness. And I like although you maybe don't see it, I feel like I would be able to spot your makeup on someone. Like if, just particularly when we're talking about the cheek contours and the color palettes and stuff like that. Um, like cause I was really surprised when you said that there. I was like, what? I was hoping for like a yes there, but like I genuinely like you're one of my favorite makeup artists in the scene, and that's not something that I ever really like tell people. So, um, but I suppose you build on it and you learn about it, and it may be just because like it took me like changing my entire face obviously to reach that point, but it just sort of settles, I guess.
Yeah, I feel like it's always changing. I mean, you look back at my drag from 3 years ago, it's very different, and it's all like inspired by stuff that I've been doing and enjoying at the time. So it does change very, very quickly. But I mean, a lot of people have told me that they recognize me through like my outfits being monochromatic, which I've never done it on purpose, but now that I'm looking back, I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I have noticed there is like a big discipline with color palette in all the looks that you do.
Yeah, I do like everything to match.
But it's nice though, it's satisfying. It's like a very rewarding part of the creative process when everything is cohesive and comes together nicely. And I think as well having the discipline to be able to do that is like it's a huge strength. So we are going to wrap up. But is there anything else you'd like to say before we sign off?
Thank you for having me. I love this makeup. I'm so excited to see the photos. It's very different to anything I've done before. I mean, just like the structure of the face changing is so strange to see, but in a good way. Yeah, you're also one of my favorite makeup artists
Oh, thank you.
in the scene, so it's nice to finally,
Be squigglified.
yeah, become a clone.
Yes. Or you become an inhabitant of the Sandyverse. If you lived in that universe, that's what you would look like. Well, thank you so much for coming, for letting me paint your face, and thank you for speaking on the podcast. Where can we find you on social media?
My Instagram is @theonlyneptune, and so is my Twitter.
Nice. Are you on TikTok?
Not really.
No. I'm asking everybody, are you on TikTok? Are you on TikTok? I think I've fallen off making TikToks recently. I used to make loads. But as always, you will probably know where to find me, but in case you don't, it's at Marie St. Sandy on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Thank you all so much for listening, and stick around for a preview of next week's Painted by Marie. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye. The Painted podcast will return after the festive period on the 6th of January with the first of a brand new set of makeovers. Have a lovely Christmas and New Year, and I'll see you all then.